All right, so let's talk a little bit about what you're going to learn today. So we're going to be talking about job costing and how you can improve your job costing all throughout ServiceTitan. So we're going to talk about how to set up ServiceTitan's price book to take out technician guesswork when they're, billing a job. We're going to talk about how you can use ServiceTitan's timesheets and performance pay for labor costs. We're going to talk about receiving purchase orders and updating material costs in ServiceTitan, how to calculate accurate job costing with our gross margins report, and finally, we're going to talk about how you communicate the entire job costing process with your staff so that they actually follow it, they know how important it is, and you guys have success all around. But before we get to that, of course, I need to introduce our fantastic speakers today. So Gary Libkin is the operations manager, and Kayla Bush is the CSR and office administrator at Ben Franklin, Mr. Sparky, and 1 Hour Air in Howell, Michigan. Gary started his plumbing career drilling wells and then progressed to water treatment. He began his career at Ben Franklin when owners David and Carla took a chance and hired him as an apprentice, where he worked in the field until he obtained his plumbing license. He then became the field supervisor for the company's plumbing division and led their ServiceTitan implementation. Thank you, Gary. Today, Gary works as the operations manager across all 3 of the company's divisions. Kayla, on the other hand, is relatively new to the trades. She started her career in customer service for Ben Franklin in October 2020, and today she works as a CSR and office administrator with many talents, including building pivot tables for Gary. Today, Gary and Kayla's shop is pacing to hit 10 million in revenue this year, which is quite a leap from the 2.8 million they were doing when they first joined ServiceTitan 3 years ago. Kayla and Gary, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you for having us, Jackie. We so appreciate everything you do for the trades and helping everybody out in every aspect that you do.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Gary. I really appreciate it. And welcome, Kayla. Nice to see you too.
Hi.
All right, so let's get started. I'm just going to rearrange some stuff on my screen so I can see everyone. So Gary, I know I just gave a brief history, but can you tell us a little bit more about, your background with Ben Franklin, Mr. Sparky, and 1 Hour Air? How did you end up in the position that you're in today?
Absolutely, God's grace by one, obviously. So I started out drilling wells as a 18-year-old kid, and new construction stopped in Michigan, so transferred to water treatment. And then always wanted to be a plumber. Just looked at plumbers as just amazing from where I was at, and came in and interviewed at a company, and David and Carla took a chance on me. I remember sitting across from them and them just looking at me, and I'm like, oh, I'm just so nervous as a 21-year-old kid. And they just took a huge chance on me and helped groom me and grow me. And here I am still today. So we just have an amazing team that helps push and nurture relationships within the company and grow everyone inside the company. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be sitting here for sure.
That's awesome. Love that attitude. So tell us a little bit about Ben Franklin, Mr. Sparky, and 1 Hour. How many techs do you guys have? What's your current AR, and what percentage of commercial and residential do you guys do?
So all residential, so no commercial for us. Our current tech count, we're about 45 trucks on the road, 43. We actually have 2 getting delivered today, so that'll help out a little bit. Currently, we're on pace to do about 10.2 conservatively on there. So and we're coming close to, our club memberships are very, very important to us too. So we're coming close to, I want to say we launched a new membership about 3 years ago. So I want to say we're up to a little over 3,000, 4,000 club members in that range. So yeah, that's where we're at with all our clients.
That's awesome. And that's across all 3 trades, right?
Yes. Yep. So Our plumbing, we're about 21, we'll be at 22 trucks. Our heating cooling is our fastest growing division. They've just taken off this year, which has been fantastic. We've had some key hires, which have just been a blessing. And our Mr. Sparky just continues to be very, very steady growth. You can count on them to be booked out for 2.5 weeks. So just fantastic in that area.
That's awesome. Congratulations. So let's talk a little bit about your role as an operations manager, because I know not every shop has one. What's your prime objective, and how does ServiceTitan help with that?
Yeah, prime objective is just to communicate the information and the data that's coming in that I look at on a granular level to our lead technicians for the field side. So our lead technicians can take that information. So I'll give them very generalized idea of, hey, technician A may need a little work in this area. We can coach here, or this technician's doing very, very well in this area. So keep encouraging that. So I'll take that information and pass it to our leadership team there. And then as well as our office up front. So those are, in my opinion, two of the most important positions in the industry is call taking and dispatch. So bridging the gap between the field side and the office side is something that we work on really, really hard, and try to communicate the same numbers from field side to office side so that they all understand what goes into it.
I mean, I 100% agree. On the podcast that I do for ServiceTitan, everyone's like, people underestimate dispatch, and it is, you do not realize you've had a good dispatcher until they leave.
It's insane.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. So let's talk about job costing. So to all of our wonderful folks joining us today, Gary has very kindly agreed to show his version of ServiceTitan to kind of take you through these 5 steps that we're going to show to help you keep more profit and get better at job costing. But before we get into that, I just want to talk a little bit, Gary, about how your company specifically utilizes job costing data. What were some issues you had with it prior to uncovering the workflow we're about to share?
Yeah, no, it was all very much our vendor dependent on how fast our vendors got us our bills. If we had some vendors that were taking a significant amount of time, we weren't getting it until we were getting our P&Ls at the end of the month. So making adjustments in that time period, with the way that everything's fluctuating right now, you're going to fall way, way behind if you're that far behind and lagging between adjusting your material costs and everything like that.
Got it. So you essentially were completely dependent on your vendors. They weren't giving you information in a real-time way. So by the time you got it, you were like, oh crap, we should have adjusted the price for that job. And now you just lost out on X amount of profit because of that.
Yeah. And then you're trying to make it up in months coming up, which then you raise prices based on those numbers. So to do it in a real time, at this point, we're monitoring it week by week. And the ability to adjust the price book up and down and do whatever we have to do in that aspect in a very quick Excel format makes it very, very nice to be able to isolate out specific jobs, specific materials, and make those adjustments on the fly.
Awesome. And now you're super involved in the ServiceTitan community. Do you find that other contractors struggle with this as well?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we all do. I think that's the joy of contracting right now, right? So I'm trying to keep up and maintain that side of things, the things that we can't really control, and yet we have to still try to control them. So that makes it a little bit of a fun game there right now.
Cool. All right. I'm going to launch our first poll just because I'm curious. Out of the folks that are joining us today, let us know if you are a ServiceTitan customer. And while we are running that poll, Gary, I'm going to ask you to pull up your screen and we will get started by going into this workflow. So step 1 of getting to better job costing, keeping more profit, is first and foremost creating a price book that's easy for techs to use. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to show us how you've done that at your company, and give us as many details as you can. We would love to hear them.
Absolutely. So our price book, we have individualized out by trade, which makes it a lot more efficient for the trades, obviously. So we'll use this example of a 40-gallon standard vent water heater. So we have all the details of our job, our warranty information, all of that is in there. The part that has made a drastic impact on our business and helping out is being able to attach the materials directly to the task code with the pricing in there. This is some old random pricing on there, but we'll show you that. So it's directly in there. So when the technician goes to the job and he selects that task code, this list of material is going to auto-populate for him. So this is our standard package. So this is the material that's attached to that standard package that we priced this job out for. So if we have a case where a technician's job costing is coming off a little high on this particular job type, we're able to say, hey, what's going on with this? This package may not include these items that you've added in there. We really have to watch what we're doing on that aspect.
Got it. And are we specifically looking at the Ben Franklin side, the plumbing side?
Yep. We're specifically looking at the plumbing side. We have obviously on the other side material attached as well, but I wanted to isolate it out just to make it pretty streamlined so everybody could see what we had going on there.
Got it. So just to recap, when you're building out your price book, you build out by task code and you add the materials to that particular task. So when the technicians are in the price book, they're building stuff out, they easily know what materials are required for which job, which package.
Yep. So a sump pump has the sump pump package built into there with the materials on there. A standard pump will have a standard list. Our deluxe pump will have the deluxe list. This way it improves their efficiency in the field as well, because they're not searching through a multitude of items. They can add extra items in cases where it's outside of the normal. They absolutely can search and add those materials. Those are all in ServiceTitan. We just tried to make 80% of their job more efficient by having it inside of there ready to go.
Got it. Cool. So you're just trying to make their work as efficient as possible. I'm also just going to pause here real quick and remind everyone who's watching, because we have a lot of ServiceTitan customers watching right now. If you guys have any questions as to how Gary's doing this kind of stuff, be sure to add it in the chat, add it in the Q&A, and we'll try and get to it in real time. All right. So that's the price book. That's how you built it out to keep guesswork out, take guesswork out of the technician side of things. Let's go on to step 2, which is actually timesheets and performance pay. So tracking the labor side of job costing and making sure that technicians are getting paid what they are owed and that you're able to maintain those healthy margins when it comes to the labor side.
Absolutely. So I actually have a technician signed in right now in incognito. So we'll switch to that and we'll show you kind of the whole process of him. He's clocked into the job right now. We'll add the water heater to the job right now so that we can show you real time how his time and labor get added in there. So we will sign and say we bought a water heater here. We're going to check our actions button. So this is on the tech side. So this is actually what the techs do right here. So we're going to say we used a 3/4 copper 90. We used 2 of them. We're going to save that. And we're going to say we used a 40-gallon water heater. There is the option for the technicians to see the cost of the material inside right here during this portion. Our technicians, being straightforward price, don't need to see that material cost. It's not something that they need because our jobs are built out and priced that way. So now we're going to pay and close out our job here. We'll just say we paid cash. Looks good. Payment approved. CFO is going to kill me. We'll close out our job and our job's complete now at that portion. Okay. So now what we'll do is we're going to go in and we're going to add his bonus into his job then. Okay, so we are hourly technicians. So his hourly is calculated from the time he clocks in until he clocks out of that job, all through ServiceTitan. What's nice is even if our technicians forget to clock in manually, it will clock them in from when they dispatch to the job until they complete the job. It will keep them clocked in throughout that time. So there's no miss in time there. So we'll go to, from the invoice screen, we will go to the payroll adjustments. We're going to add Francis was our technician. We're going to do a direct commission or adjustment. We're going to say Francis made $25 bonus on that one. We had 1 bonus there. And we'll say it was for an install bonus. We're going to go ahead and save that. So now Francis's material and time are already done and taken care of for that job. So any materials you'll be able to see directly on the invoice underneath right here from the office side. So our warehouse manager will see all of this and it's processed right there. There's a way now, since this job is closed, if you were in this invoice screen, you can hit the job costing button and it's going to calculate and give you your gross margin immediately right there on that job. What we like to do is go a little further, make sure that our material is sent in and ordered. So on this particular job, the way that Francis just ran that job, he was super efficient. He had 2.74% labor and he had materials at 23%. So his gross margin was 72.56% right off the bat right there. I think it's a feature not a lot of people use. And it's really nice to be able to see that in a real-time base. So what we like to do is from here, Francis closed his job out. We like to go to his material right here and make sure that our office manager went ahead and orders his material for him.
So this is step 3, actually.
This is, sorry, yes, I just skipped through step 3.
No, you're all good. You're doing a fantastic job at demoing here. So just to recap real quick, we did step 1, which was creating a price book that's easy for techs to use. Step 2, being able to leverage timesheets and performance pay to actually have that commission built into Francis's job. And now we're going into step 3. Oh, I think I said step 3 before. Step 3, which is receiving purchase orders and updating material costs with inventory and replenishment.
Yes, sorry, I skipped right over that portion.
No, you're all good.
So now that Francis closed that job out, his labor's in there, his bonus is in there, and he's ordered the material. He is done with this job as far as he's concerned at this point. So now this comes to our warehouse manager. So our warehouse manager is going to replenish the job that he did right there. Here's our job number. We have 0 quantities over here, so we know those are not portion of that needs to be replenished. You can simply click here, create a purchase order, go to his purchase ordering here, send a PO, a PDF. This job is done. So he is now wrapped up and good to go as far as his entire job there from start to finish on that side. And then this is where I get to look at my material now and see how we did on that job, or our lead technicians get to see how we did on that job.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to pause right there for step 1 through 3. So again, just to recap for everyone, create a price book that has those materials added, right? Easy for techs to use. Timesheets and performance pay, which are relatively new features in ServiceTitan that really help with calculating that performance pay. And then also receiving purchase orders and updating material costs. So this was all on the technician side of things. So we've got a couple questions that came in through the chat. And by a couple, I mean we have 5. So Keith in the chat wants to know, do you leave the quantity all at 0 on the pre-built material list and then the tech adjusts the quantity?
I do. So I had all of the quantities set at 1 to start with. And what happens is we ended up getting a bunch of returns, right? If they forgot to uncheck a couple of items and remove that quantity down to 0. So what I found is that it's easier for them to add the materials that they've used than take it away, because if they miss something and forget, then we have a box of returns that we're paying our warehouse manager to process that purchase order and return it back.
Nice. Cool. All right. Next question is from Megan Curtis. And she asks, are your tasks with material added automatically add a material or just used for created pricing?
I'm not sure what she means. Can you read that again?
Sure. You can actually open it up on your side too on the Q&A if you just want to read along with me. But her question is, are your tasks with material added automatically add material or just used for created pricing?
They are automatic. They automatically are added on there. Yeah. So that the client doesn't see those at all. So that is solely internal of how that works.
Got it. Oh, we've got another. So Megan Curtis, if that answered your question, great. If it didn't, let us know in the chat and we'll get some more clarification. Another question from another Megan Colby. Are you only adding the materials in the breakdown when the techs are pulling materials out of the truck stock and then pull POs when there is missing info, such as the water heater?
So we do it 2 ways. So that is on a replenishment. So if our technician goes out there and is doing that job today and they're taking that off of their truck, they can do it that way and add it directly as a replenishment, or they have the option to add a purchase order and pull it that way as well. So we do actually do it 2 ways. So it's based on if we're doing the job later or doing the job now.
Got it. And I think to that question, Keith just put in the chat, is materials used tracked per tech or van? What if you have more than one tech using materials on the same job? How does replenishment work in that situation?
Yep. So they're tracked per tech per van. So everybody has their own vans. There is a way, I believe, in ServiceTitan to have 2 people attached to the vans. So as you're clicking into the replenishment, you can select which technician used it. So it would be based off of their appointments, I believe, on that one. But luckily for us, we have all of our techs have their own individual vans. But I do believe that you can do it by appointment and each technician that's there.
Gary, you are a ServiceTitan expert, my friend. One more question from Kristen, and then we'll go on to the next 2 steps. But she wants to know, what challenges did you face when adding the materials to the task prior versus on the job?
Yes. So adding them prior, the challenges were learning the hiccup of putting the quantity in there due to returns. That was something at the beginning that we had a significant amount of returns. And the second one is just being flexible, just explaining to the techs, like when we first launched this, like, yeah, we're going to have some materials that are either not supposed to be on that task code or need to be added to that task code. So just having we had a Google sheet that everyone could add, like, hey, this one was not in here, we need this added, or you had a sewage pump instead of a sump pump in there. So it's just getting that communication out of, yes, it's going to make us more efficient at first. It's going to be a little difficult, but it's doing that communication side of things. Also, currently, not all of our material has pictures, but actually, I believe it was either Tom Howard or someone said to put pictures on there. So it's like shopping on like Amazon. So I'm currently getting pictures in our new price book. I'm updating everything. Getting pictures of everything attached to all the material, which there's like 2,000 items in there. So there's quite a bit of pictures to get attached in there.
Sounds like a delightful task. Looks like Corey in the chat is also experiencing the same thing. Techs wouldn't remove items that they didn't use, and that caused a lot of over replenishment. And I just want to say, after this, the final kind of part of this webinar is we're going to talk a little bit more about the communications that Gary used at his company to make sure everyone was aligned. And I'm sure that Google Sheet will come up again. And Kristen also agrees, pictures are huge. Agree with that. So we're just going to chug along and go right now into step 4, which is actually calculating the job costs. So I would love for you to show us, please, Gary, how you actually calculate job costs in ServiceTitan and how you're getting that on a really regular basis.
Yeah. So since the advent of the gross margin, putting that in there and the percentage and total revenue per the job, we were able to build a pretty neat report that, so there's 2 ways you can do it. You can do it off a job or you can do it off project. So we actually built it out both ways. So I'll show you an example of why. But like, this is the job that we just completed for our technician, Francis. We're going to pull him up right here. We're going to filter that right there. So this is going to give us on a per job basis right here, our gross margin that we're looking for. So for us, we typically shoot for a 60% gross margin. If I was to remove Francis from that filter, one of the things that we do as a dispatch team up front is we put the filter on and we filter for anything underneath that 60%. Because if we're underneath that 60%, we need to isolate, is it a material cost? Is it a labor cost problem? Did I mess something up in the office and add something that shouldn't be there or too short of time? So we filter it out to get a snapshot really quickly of what's going on there. And Kayla's helped take that a step farther. So from this report, we actually export it out and we do by technician, by job type. That way we can see training opportunities. That way we can see which techs are amazing at certain things. We were able to isolate out that we had one technician that loves to sell toilets. And like, I would have had no clue. Not my favorite thing in the world to sell. I was a tankless guy, but he loved to sell toilets and sells a premier toilet on almost every call. And we were able to isolate that out and find it and found his sweet spot. And Joe loves to sell toilets. So, but it helped us because his margins were always where they needed to be on those calls, where someone that didn't like to do a toilet, they weren't happy installing it. So their labor was slower. They may have used a couple more parts. So we were able to isolate that kind of thing out from this report. So this report will show us, we just finished this job and we know exactly where we're at on our margins. So we're at 72.5 5%. Our material cost was at 524. So that includes, so there's a difference between material costs and purchase order costs and total cost. Learning those columns is one of the biggest things that I can recommend doing. We have our labor pay, that is his straight hourly for the time that he was clocked in on that job. And then we have our payroll adjustment. So that was our bonus. So now that tells us a total picture of our total cost of that job right there. So monitoring that on a weekly basis is going to give you a real inclination week over week if a tech's growing, if they're learning. That aspect has been huge for us in our growth.
That is so awesome. Keith wants to know what default report is this? What fields are used? So is this actually a default or did you build this out?
I built this out. So I think I can do this right here if I remember correctly. So it's underneath the jobs report. And then I think, hold on one second. Let me see if I can go like this.
No worries.
I think we can do this. And that shows the report template is jobs. And then all of the columns that I've pulled out are right here.
Awesome. Would you mind screen sharing that all of those filters that you use, and I can share it with everyone who attended so they can build their own?
So just like screen.
Yeah, just screenshot it.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Thank you. We've got a lot of questions coming in, and that usually is an indicator that you guys are finding this content interesting. So I'm so happy to hear that. But Gary, it sounds like 60%, that's really what you look for. If anything is dipping below 60% on that gross margin report, that's an immediate flag to you. Like, who needs some more training in some area? What jobs aren't we pricing correctly? And you take the action from there. Am I right in that?
Absolutely. And it may be my fault. You know, maybe I did not price that job correctly from the beginning, or one thing I did found is we have some techs that are really fast and really efficient. And then we have some techs that are just, you know, they're really good in specific areas, but I price the jobs at the really fast people that it's unrealistic for our awesome, amazing technicians that are not quite as fast as them. It's unrealistic for them to hit those numbers. So I may have priced that job a little lower than it actually should be. And that would be my fault, you know? So what we try to look at when we do those by job type basis is to get a good average of where we're hitting on that margin right there is what we're doing.
Got it. So you just showed us an example of, you know, looking at one fake job report and seeing the job costs for that. For you on the operations manager side, what's your cadence for kind of pulling and looking at these jobs, and just like, what's your maintenance in terms of leveraging this report? What does that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so I built it out for all three of our trades. Okay, so heating, cooling, I'll jump in and check those jobs quite regularly, just with the fluctuation. I mean, we've seen what's between 16 and 27% increase on equipment, just solely equipment, and the same with water heaters. So those are things that I want to monitor and make sure that we're staying up with quite regularly. So I'll jump on those and do those at least every 3 days on the heating cooling side. Plumbing, I have a pretty good cadence with that. Luckily, it's my trade, so I have a little better grasp of how that all works together. And electrical's been a little up and down as well. I mean, with the wire pricing and all of that. So it's been a little up and down. So I'll watch those between every 2 to 3 days, and then I'll get them up to our dispatcher as well. And so Nancy and myself will sit down and we'll go through them. And she's been able to help out. She's from Texas and she's amazing, and she pulls no punches. And so she helps out a lot and keeps me in my place and keeps me in my lane when it comes to that stuff. But she's able to isolate out that stuff as well, meeting with her all the time.
Awesome. All right. We've got a ton of questions right now. So I'm going to ask you to just leave your ServiceTitan open right now in case you want to go back and show anything. And then we still need to talk about step 5, which is communicating the process. But I want to get into some more of these technical questions first. And quick reminder to everyone who's watching, you can go into the Q&A panel and you can upvote questions you want answered the most. So please do that, because we've got a few now. We've got 11, and I want to make sure that we have time to answer the ones you guys are really excited about. So next question is from Megan Curtis, and she wants to know, does your labor cost go by tech pay rate or burden rate?
Tech pay rate.
Easy.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Next one is from Carrie, and she says, my techs often put in a PO for an inventory part. This creates the materials in the cost fly out twice. How do I get around this?
Yes, so that does happen. What we've done in that case, so what I found with that is you can delete it off of the invoice. So if it's pre-built and that is a populated task code, your dispatcher or whoever you have close out your invoices and check your invoices. If there's a zero quantity, they can delete that right on the job flyout or the invoice portion of it before it gets to the job flyout. I have found that. We had it with some equipment that we had going that way.
Got it. Very cool. All right. Next question's from Carly. This got an upvote. Are you guys using Pricebook Pro or updating the core Pricebook yourself?
Core Pricebook ourselves.
There you go.
Was really, really nice. But I started at, we luckily built ours from the ground up from the beginning. So coming from the field, I took some Excel classes and learned some Excel, and I like to be able to bulk edit stuff pretty quickly.
Got it. Cool. This next one's from Blaine, and he uses Pricebook Pro, so feel free to pass on this if this isn't for you. He says, we have quantities to help with our pricing. Any suggestions for the zero quantity and not messing up the price book?
I can't speak on that one. I'm not sure.
All good. Blaine, I am going to do my research and get your question answered after the webinar. Next question is from Dean, and he says we use true performance pay. So we use the bonus field on each material item to pay labor. Our job cost fly out on the invoice shows hourly labor calculated at the hourly rate per tech and not the bonus or performance pay. How can I get this to be accurate?
That's a tough one. That one, the jobs have to be posted, I believe, because we don't do any kind of performance pay, but I believe it has to be posted. So I think it would come down to a finance batching question on how quickly you could get that posted and batched in there. We're not 100% on that one.
Yeah, Dean, I would follow up with your CSM, and if you need help finding out who they are, just let me know, and I will happily get that information for you.
Titan Center, you can see you right away. It's awesome.
Titan Center. Oh, Eric Botner. Hey, Eric, nice to see you. He would like to know, how do you determine all the POs have been entered on the job when looking at the gross margin report to make sure it's finalized?
Yeah, no, so that one you'll have to just check and make sure that there's no zero POs on there. So when you're looking every third day, we have an amazing finance department. So our relationship with our vendors is very quick. They process the POs. What I found is if you are doing the replenishment and you're getting them the PDFs right away, they tend to get us our invoicing a lot quicker, which is great. Instead of the guys calling in a purchase order over the phone and talking to someone at the counter, we've arranged it with the replenishment side to where we're getting our invoicing next day. So our amazing finance team, like I said, the smart half of the office is all up front, that's for sure. But they're able to get that stuff in for me. I set pretty high expectations for them. So they're able to get it in for us, I would say within 2 to 3 days, no matter what.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. And finally, I see a couple questions that I think we've answered already, but Carly wants to know, you said your dispatcher is the one who closes out jobs. Does this mean your techs don't bill and collect on site?
No, they do. They do. So my closeout jobs would be a little different. They would just be making sure that we have no failed credit card. They didn't type in the expiration date wrong or miss a number or anything like that. And then Nancy will go through and just make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted and stuff like that, but they all collect in the field.
Got it. And a real quick question. Are you adding in a burden rate? Paul Eddy would like to know.
I'm not adding in a burden rate. That's something that I'll probably grow into. It's just not something that we've done with our straightforward pricing. So something I definitely am looking into and growing into more.
Cool. All right. We're going to get back to the questions in a minute, but before we do, let's go to the fifth and final step, which is communicating the entire process with techs and office staff. And Gary, if you'd like, you can stop sharing your screen so we can see your and Kayla's lovely faces and not in that tiny box.
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
And again, if anyone has any questions, there you go. If anyone has any more questions, please put them in the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer them live. Yeah. So yes, talk to me about how you guys communicate with your team so they know why this is important and why they do stuff correctly. Absolutely.
So it comes down to just, this is something that we're an open book. So if anybody wants to see the P&Ls with our technicians, more than happy to have anyone come in, show them our P&L, show them why and what everything that goes inside of that. And I feel like doing that, everybody gets a buy-in. They know how all of our raises come. They know how we get new trucks. They know how we get nice equipment. And then relying on the team to help communicate that and getting everybody behind that vision. Kayla handles, we have 3 separate monitors for each division out in our tech area. And Kayla handles that for us. So all of their numbers are updated weekly. So they have multiple different pretty charts that she's made and all that stuff, which is way outside of my realm. But she updates that and just sends positive messages out. And then on myself, we have an amazing leadership team of lead technicians. So we meet quite often. I'll meet by department, and then also we'll get all together. And they have the relationship that they have with our field staff is unbelievable. So they'll meet constantly because they want everyone in the company to grow and move up in the company. If that's what they want to move up. So what they do is they share those numbers. So we have charts broken out by each individual technician of their labor, their material, which areas they're doing fantastic in, which areas they can grow, the training opportunities, and we want them to bring those up to us. So, we share those numbers with them quite often. I'll use our plumbing supervisor, Kyle. He is with them all the time. He's giving them success plans. So their success plans were like, hey, this specific area of a water heater, right? We see that our margins and everything are not there. It's taking a little longer. Is that something that we need to train on? Is that something you just don't know? And then he'll reach right out to them and get whatever training that they need, build them plans. We work with Interplay. So we have virtual reality training. So we're able to say, okay, this section right here, let's train on that. So it's just getting that entire buy-in of like, hey, if we can cut material cost, that means I can spend more money on you guys, right? So, and showing them that and teaching them that and trying we don't want to hide anything. We want to be just an open book for everyone to see across the entire company.
I love that. That's so great. When I did the growth series a couple months ago, one of the sessions I did was all on open book management. And that was like the key. That's what Ellen Rohr from Zoom Drain said, which is you want your team to play the game, get them in on the strategy, show them the numbers, show them how they're doing, how they can improve. And people want to do a good job, I think. So that totally works out. That's awesome.
Yeah, we want them to know exactly how to get to where they want to go. We operate on EOS, so we have accountability charts, so everybody knows exactly the steps that they need to take to get to the next level, and we want everyone to see how to do it. And I don't want anything hidden from them.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. So we're going to go back to the questions. So again, I'm going to invite everyone, if you have any questions for Gary or for Kayla, please